Welcome to a presentation about the recent expedition to Mount Athos, Sierra Victor 1 Golf Alpha/Alpha that took place in January 2025. I'm Adrian, Kilo Oscar 8, Sierra Charlie Alpha, and I was lucky enough to be part of this the expedition. What follows is a little story that will allow you to judge for yourselves how difficult it is to get approval, operate, come back safely, and talk about it when you get home. So, the expedition took place in 2025, and we were 5 operators: Athos SV1GA, Marty, famous the expeditioner, Oscar Hotel 2 Bravo Hotel. My friend Gabi, Yankee Oscar 8 Whiskey, who was in charge of the logistics. He drove all the equipment from Romania over Bulgaria. Then Nico, for those of you that do any contesting, Oscar Hotel 2 Golf Echo Kilo is one of the operators in the Azores and also in the many OH0 and OH8 contestations. And then myself. Well, a little bit about Mount Athos, also named the monastic republic of Athos. It's located in northern Greece, and it's surrounded by Aegean Sea. It also has the name of Garden of the Virgin Mary. So it's a holy place. It's basically the spiritual capital of the Orthodox Christianity. Although it's part of Greece, it's an autonomous region and is made up of 20 monasteries. Now each monastery has a lot of churches and cells and skids, and in total on Mount Athos there are about 2,000 monks. These monasteries are situated all over the Mount Athos Peninsula, usually around the shores of the Mount Athos Peninsula. There are all kind of monasteries, Greek, Russian, Serbian, Bulgarians, Romanians, and so forth. And each monastery is graded or has an importance based on how old it is. The oldest one was built in the 10th century when Mount Athos was set up. And that monastery is the Great Larva. So because it's the oldest, is the highest in importance when it comes to voting and many other aspects on running the island, the peninsula. To give you a perspective, the peninsula is about 30 miles long and about 130 square miles. And right at the south end of the peninsula is the Athos Peak, about 6,000 feet. If you visit the Mount Athos almost year-round, you can see snow at the peak of the mountain. It's actually pretty nice pictures to take of that. Now, the land of the Mount Athos is divided among these 20 monasteries, but there's a town of Kairos where the main parliament of the Mount Athos is situated. It's a small little town. It has a few shops, and but most of the land is divided among these 20 monasteries. The official time is Byzantine time, so the date does not start at midnight. It starts with the sunset, and that has some implications as well. Believe it or not, in Mount Athos there are more than 20 hand radio licenses. These monks that hold licenses, they're using mostly for VHF operation, either among the monasteries or around the monasteries' grounds, but also to keep in touch with the fishing boats that daily go and catch fish. The monks try to be self-sufficient. Now, in 1988, Mount Athos was designated as a UNESCO World Heritage. Also, this has an implication because European Union will allocate significant funds to preserve and develop the Mount Athos Peninsula. There are a few interesting things there that you have to keep in mind. No women allowed, no children, there's no filming, no smoking, very decent attire, like you're not allowed to wear shorts. There's no hunting, no guns, no camping, no TV sets, no cell phones in the church. You can have a cell phone around you. Actually, there are 2 cell phone towers in the peninsula, so the phones work pretty well. But you're not allowed to use them to take pictures or film or even use them in the church. There's no meat for the meals. Monks are all vegetarians. Now there are workers that do some chores on the peninsula, and those are allowed to eat meat if they want to, but the monks do not do so. During the meals, you're not allowed to talk. The meals only take 10 minutes. Regardless if you finished eating or not, you have to get up and continue with what you have been doing. There are a lot of cats there, and that's probably to keep the mouse population in check. And a lot of wild mules. In the past, it's very hard to move around the monasteries. There are not that many roads, and the ones that exist are mostly only usable by 4-wheel drives. If you go and live there for even a little while, you realize that it's really a very serene place, especially if you're religious and you sit down and listen to their prayers. It really transposes you into a totally different world, away from what you use at home with the distractions of the smartphones and TV and news and so forth. It's the prayers, the day actually starts at 3 o'clock in the morning when they ring the bells, everybody wakes up, and by 4 o'clock you have to be in church listening to the prayers. The prayers take about a couple hours, and then you go to have your first meal. And then after that's done, in about 10 minutes, you go out and do your work. In the evening, the process repeats, and everyone goes to prayer. And when the prayer is finished, then everybody goes to eat for about 10 minutes, and then about sunset, everybody goes to sleep. So, very simple schedule: pray, work, and rest. It's a really isolated place, and one of the things that's interesting to mention is the fact that although there are 20 monasteries, they're so different from each other. Some of them are pretty modern. Go there, they have asphalt on their roads, they have even radios, tracking system, they have electricity, they look like impressive constructions. And to the other end of the spectrum, there are monasteries that do not want any roads to lead to them. You get there by walking through the forest. There are some of them that do not want any electricity. Some of them don't even have running water. So you go and sit there or stay there for about a week. You feel that you're back in time in the 15th century. It's quite an interesting feeling, again, especially if you're religious. And this life of fasting and simplicity kind of changes the way you see the world. The monks try to be self-sufficient. What does that mean? Is that, after they finish their morning meal, they are getting busy with their vineyards. They have olive trees, they have lemon trees, they have vegetable gardens. Some of them are beekeepers. So they keep busy. They constantly have something to do. Some of the monasteries have solar panels and generators, diesel generators. Like I said, there are a couple of cell phone towers that I saw there, and some of the roads for some monasteries are paved mostly with support from the UU community. It's a place that it's completely different, and even if you go and walk for 2 miles, you see totally different worlds. From one monastery that looks like it's not really a Hilton hotel, but you see modernity there. But then you go and walk for a mile, and you are, as I said, back to 15th century. And believe it or not, the monastery that we were hosted on had a Hytera DMR repeater system, and it's one of the reasons a communication channel was opened between us ham operators and our hosts. Now, why go there? Well, apart from seeing the world as totally different to what we are used to, from the ham operator point of view, Mount Athos is number 27 in the IDXC Most Wanted list. But for North America is number 14. And for those of you living here on the West Coast, it's a whopping number 6. That makes it basically top 10. If you look at the amount of activity on Mount Athos with that graph taken from Club Log, you can see that the number of QSOs are insignificant compared to the demand. We ended up making around 13,000 QSOs, and as a perspective compared to the activity starting with 2006. Most of that activity that you see there are the monks that lived or used to live and were active there. The last monk that was active, Monk Yubakon, from what I heard, now lives at the monastery in Austria. A famous monk that was there, Monk Apollo, died a few years ago, and so there are actually at this point in time no monks that are active that you can work to enjoy IDXing. Again, to give you a perspective, the Mount Athos has added to the IDXC Most Wanted list in 1972, and there was a nice article posted in QST in 1973 that announced it to the world that Mount Athos is a separate country. One of the interesting things that I found out is one day while in Mount Athos, one of the monks told me that they were looking online and were all these comments about removing Mount Athos from the IDXC list, and I was a bit taken aback at the fact that they were actually checking these things, and the fact that he knew what the IDXC was. Another interesting thing was that while I was on Mount Athos last year, I was talking to quite a few monks, and I was impressed by the level of knowledge that they had about the world. The first monk that I spoke to had a degree in physics from MIT. Another guy was from Columbia University. He had a degree in mathematics. He was able to speak 6 languages, and of course, I was impressed. You can have a really constructive conversation, and they will really listen to things related that I was telling them about ham radio. Now, Mount Athos was not activated quite often. Actually, the last activation of Mount Athos by people from outside Mount Athos, meaning not monks, had happened 34 years ago. This is quite a long time, and you see there I circled the expeditions of those that went there, among them Baldur in 1991. Also, an interesting expedition that took place was Sierra Victor 1 Golf Alpha / in July 1975, exactly 50 years ago. Now, the same exact team will activate Mount Athos this year to announce the 50-year anniversary. This is a picture of the 2 protagonists, Marty to the left, OH2PH, and Aris, Sierra Victor 1 Golf Alpha, both using the call sign, Aris's call sign with the designated A. At that time, A meant Mount Athos. These days, A means alternative location. An interesting picture that was taken is Aris 50 years ago on the left, and this year on the right picture, and it's the same Parliament building where Aris went, and there was a meeting board meeting there, and they discussed regarding him asking for the permission to activate Mount Athos. The monks discussed among themselves, and the secretary told him after about, I think, an hour that he is allowed to go. And most interestingly is that they applied the stamps and they said, you can go in the woods, put your antenna and do your thing. It turns out that Aris's grandfather was quite an important priest, and he ordained the secretary monk that actually put the stamp on his authorization. So obviously it is important of who you know. We took exactly the same pictures as I said this year in January. Now, what do you need to go to Mount Athos? Well, you need a visa. Everyone that goes there, no matter who you are, you need a visa. It's called a diamontrion. Basically, to go to Mount Athos, you are invited by a monastery. The monastery, if they agree to invite you, they'll put your name and passport number in a computer system, and then when you arrive at Mount Athos, you line up in the port at 5 o'clock in the morning. You sit in line, and then the visa officer looks into the computer, checks your passport, and says, okay, you're here. You pay, I think, $20, and they will give you the visa, this is how it looks like. The one on the left is actually my visa, and the other one is Marty's. So this visa allows you to enter Mount Athos as a pilgrim. It does not allow you anything else but go to Mount Athos and visit, basically. To operate from Mount Athos, there are other requirements that need to be met. What you see here, believe it or not, is a copy of Aris's permit from 50 years ago, and you see the stamp there from Mount Athos with the signature that allowed them to operate, or put the antenna basically, and operate from Mount Athos. So we needed to get something similar. How did that happen? Well, the story begins, believe it or not, with Bouvet in 2023. I was getting ready to go on the trip in Bouvet, and my wife said, it's going to be a long 2 months trip at sea. It will be wise for you to go to church. There, the priest will give you a praying and a blessing, and maybe a little bit more brain, so that you do things like normal people. So I had a discussion with the priest. He was trying to understand what I was going to do. I did attempt to explain him, but I don't know if he understood. The idea is, he gave me a blessing and a bottle of holy water that I was to spray onto the boat to safely return home. And I did that, and I returned home, and I was able to tell the story. So I guess my wife was right. Going to church really helped. What I didn't know at that time is that will open some opportunities that I didn't dream of. A few months later on, visiting the same priest and befriending him, he announced that as in his function as one of the chiefs of the Orthodox Church of America, he would organize an official high-level trip, an official U.S. delegation to Mount Athos. And I begged him to take me. And he said he will do so, and so I joined the team to Mount Athos. Among the priests were priests from Texas, from Florida, from New Jersey, even from Hawaii. And so I was part of this delegation, and when we arrived in Mount Athos, we were treated as a VIP. We visited a lot. They gave us everything that we needed to visit the different monasteries. Of course, I had to go to all the religious services, and among other things, during a high-level meeting, I asked for permission to speak to the high-level people in charge there. As a matter of fact, the person in the picture there is, I think, second in command in Mount Athos. And it took me a while to find the right words, but I had 3 minutes to ask him, what if I come back and do some ham radio? It wasn't that easy, but and to keep the story short, the idea is, I explained. He said that he gives me a verbal blessing, but a lot of things need to be resolved in order to get the proper documentation. Afterwards, he assigned a person to work with and see how we can collaborate. As I said before, they have a radio system there that allows them to keep in touch with each other. It's a DMR type of system, and didn't work too well. In any case, the person he assigned to me was a monk that was born in Atlanta, Georgia. So he spoke perfect English. He got all the nuances and everything that was needed to put the trip together. At that moment, I called Marty and I said, this would be a great moment for us to join forces, and you can speak to Aris and see if we can make a 50-year anniversary. And so I also contacted my friend Gabi, Yankee Oscar 8 Whiskey, and because Bulgaria was just joined the European Union, it was a lot easier to transport the equipment driving from Romania, and that would simplify the logistics of the equipment. Things would be a lot more complicated than that, because as a pilgrim, you can't bring generators and fuel and antennas and everything that you needed, so we needed permits for all kind of things. And it worked the same way. The permit would be put into the computer system, you show up there and they check your passport, and then they will allow you in. This is the high-level meeting that gave the blessing for ham radio to be happening sometime in the future. I was not too hopeful, but it was a start. Even a verbal yes is better than nothing. To get to Mount Athos, you have to go by ferry. There are ferries that leave Greece mainland about maybe daily, sometimes even more than one ferry a day. You embark in the ferry, and then depending on where you have invitation, the ferry stops around the different points on the island and on the peninsula, and you go to the monastery that invited you. From the ferry, you have the opportunity to take a very nice picture of Peak Athos. Very good, nicely looking picture. This is how the monasteries look like. See a lot of construction going on. Being part of the European Union is quite a good advantage for Mount Athos. They receive a lot of funds from the European Union to restore these old buildings. Some of them are real museums, basically. They have books and all kind of items from the past. Some of the monasteries are in complete ruin. On this one, there's no one lives there. And so they are quite derelict, but this is the monastery that we been hosted. It is one of the more advanced in Mount Athos. The monks were absolutely incredibly nice to us. We told them what we want, and I keep repeating that the best site for us is to go somewhere in the middle of nowhere and far away from the amenities that the civilization offered to us. They felt a bit guilty, and the first site that they showed us were very nice rooms, almost Hilton quality, and we politely refused them. Then they showed us another building that we can be hosted right next to the water. And that looked pretty good, except there were a lot of lights with LED lights for the mooring. And we pulled out the receiver, and of course, noise that you wouldn't believe. So they said, well, if you guys don't like the nice places, we'll show you one that we don't really recommend. It's in the middle of nowhere. We sometimes host some workers there. It's not really comfortable. It just has a bed and and a mattress. And I said, this is perfect, take us there. He said, well, we'll need to use a 4x4 and take all this equipment, and we'll probably, you guys gonna be staying there for the duration of the stay. Well, what I forgot to mention is that our permit arrived in November last year, and so we did a lot of preparations and a lot of back and forth discussions of what exactly we need and how things should work out. This site that we offered is actually was used by the firefighters to train themselves and get ready in case there's a fire. The monasteries and the monks are really, really afraid because in Greece there were some devastating fires only last year, and there was also an earthquake in Turkey that was quite a few people died, and of course were also publicized all over the world. So they were looking at ways to train the firefighters and improve their communication system, and that was very sweet to hear to our ears. So this is the site where we operated from. It was still on the monastery's property, but far away in the woods. It was perfect for us. We had space to put as many antennas as we wanted. And we basically, these are the rooms. We had K3 radios and some amplifiers, and we installed a bunch of antennas, opti beams and verticals for different bands. We also put a dipole for 160. We put a vertical on top loading. We're using a fiberglass pole. I'll show you some pictures later on. Now, to be frank, I did not believe that we were able to get on the air, only until we were actually at the location and we saw the first antennas going up. And so, on a Friday evening, Aris got on the radio and made the first QSO, and at that moment we announced to the world that there is the expedition to Mount Athos. It was so much work to get things prepared. A lot of people involved obviously didn't know what ham radio is and what exactly we were doing. One of the understanding between us and the monks were that we will go there, operate, keep things quiet and not interfere with their serene life, undisturbed by the outside world. And we intended to do so, and obviously they're far away from where the pilgrims will go. It was a perfect location, and also from the point of view of noise and propagation. These are some pictures of the antennas. So we also had the satellite system, the Qatar satellite that's very popular in Europe, for the first time activated from Mount Athos. To the right there is the 160 vertical. Our plan was to go in the air, work as many Europeans as possible to make room for North America the next night when where the real need is for this particular band. Now the next night never came, but we worked about 500 stations in 160 and about 5 or 6 lucky North Americans. Of course, I looked them up all on the QRZ. They all had some really nice setup. We only used 100 watts that night for 160. We were planning to put the amplifier the next night. This is the building that we were staying. As I said, it was a building designated for some outside workers, and in particular at that time when we were there, the firefighters were training for potential disaster. As a matter of fact, one of them was a helicopter pilot, and he had a call sign. It was actually a pretty active ham. I was looking up in QRZ, so that was nice to know. There were quite a few hams around involved there. Well, on Monday morning, we continued being on the air, and we got a call from the monastery saying that the police has arrived and they have a lot of questions, and we should stop transmitting and speak to the police. Well, I said that's not a problem, but obviously you guys gave us the permit, so why they're asking questions? They said, well, the permit is not an issue. It seems there's something related to their license. It seems that some person made a phone call to the local police and told them that there's a group, an unauthorized amateur radio operator that are there in Mount Athos illegally. In any case, we went to the police station and we gave them a statement. They did not care about our equipment or anything else. They just wanted to see our license. And of course, our host provided a copy of the permit and the invitation for ham radio that they gave us, so there's no issue there. The police looked at our ham radio license, at our visas, and they said, well, looks like all is in order, but according to the Greek law, we are supposed to investigate and open a case, regardless if the complaint is frivolous or not. And so, they opened up a case, they gathered all the documentation, the copy of the passports, and they took all this documentation. They said, well, from our point of view, everything looks okay. There's no issue here, but we will send the paperwork to the prosecutor's office in Saloniki, which is the largest city right next to Mount Athos. The prosecutor's office received the documents through fax, I guess, or computer, and from that moment on, we had to wait for their verdict. They said many things could be happening. In any case, even if they find that you guys are not legal or something is not okay, it's just in the end, it's just a misdemeanor and you guys might have to pay a fine. Well, there was nothing to do. We're getting hungry, and I said, can we go and get something to eat from the town? And one of the policemen actually gave me a sandwich that it was made by his wife. And the other policeman, when brought us a menu, he said the food is on us, and we can also get drinks and so forth. So when I said that we were invited to the police station, it's not because I was trying to say politely, but actually we were invited there. They were very nice to us. There was no issue. Again, they just looked at our papers, and in 5 minutes they knew that there was nothing wrong. In any case, waiting for the prosecutor's office to give an answer was quite nail-biting, and of course, we're all thinking that in the end this is a hobby, and all of a sudden you end up being investigated by the police, by someone that wanted to, probably out of jealousy, try to make sure that we actually not going to operate as we were planning. One of the other things that we learned is that it turns out that only 2 weeks before us, there was a group of Greek operators that tried to get permission to operate, and they were denied. So based on that, we realized that quite a few angry people out there thinking, how come these guys got the permit and we didn't? The wait was not easy, but in the end, the prosecutor's office came back and said that was a bit upset as well, saying this was a waste of resources of the prosecutor's office. They came back and said there is absolutely nothing illegal here, and we could go on and do whatever we have to do. We went back to the monastery and that hosted us, and we asked them, now that everything is cleared up, can we go back and operate? Well, they said, yes, no problem, but the person that's in charge is currently not in the monastery. He's away, and so you'll have to wait about 3 or a few days, at least 3 days, until he returns to Mount Athos, and most likely that's not going to be an issue. Marty was pretty sick. He was trying to hide it, but he could barely stand. And the Aris was a bit shaken by the fact that one of the countrymen made such a big effort to create all this mess when we actually promised the monks that our operation will not interfere with their life, quiet life in Mount Athos. And so in the end we decided to leave, but there was one more problem. If we decided to leave and not continue the operation, who was going to believe us that we actually operated legally? And so we asked our host if there's a possibility for them to give us a letter that will specify, all these things that happened. And so they wrote a letter which was approved by the board, and then it was forwarded to the legal counsel, who in turn agreed that the content of the letter is okay to be stamped and signed, just like our permit, which contained our names and passport numbers, and was on the letterhead and had the necessary signatures and approval on it. So that letter basically clearly says exactly what I just said now, meaning that the police found no issues, the prosecutors found no issues, and the operation is certainly legal. It cannot be illegal because these people were invited, and they have the paperwork to prove it. So these are the documents that we actually provided to ARL. Of course, these documents were in Greek, and so it took a while for them to authenticate them and make sure that they're the real deal and they are exactly what was needed for us to operate legally from Mount Athos. As I said, we did not get the chance to make a lot of QSOs. We made for the first time Q100 satellite QSOs, about 500 of them. The statistics are available on Coblog, so not going to go into details. Looks like I'm running out of time here. We're currently waiting for word from Mount Athos for them to approve the content of or the design of the QSL card. And so we already uploaded the logbook of the world on April 4th, and OQRS for those that want to get the paper QSL card is available. We opened that up on April the 8th. All the donations, including the OQRS money, go to Mount Athos. We wanted to support the fact that they were so nice to us and actually not only provided us with the perfect site and all the paperwork, they even designated a person to come twice a day and bring us food. They're always calling us to ask, do we need anything else? We still couldn't believe that we accepted to stay in that old building instead of the nice rooms they firstly provided us. We took the obligatory team picture. And I guess at this point I'm going to stop and take questions from you guys. Thank you for listening to our story. I'm available to answer any questions that you might have if we don't get the chance to answer too many at this time. So go ahead, if there are any questions, I'm ready to answer.
This is Ray, IDXC. You guys went through all the effort to do everything legal and follow all your approvals and no issues, whatever. Can you guys go back again?
Well, the communication channel with our hosts is still open. Remember, we offered to help them with the DMR system. So regardless of if we get an invitation back or not, we're still going to be keeping our promises to help them with their system. The guy that's actually that's in charge of the TMR system is Ham. He actually showed me the Greek call book and his call sign there. That he had a call book from the 60s, so I guess he's been a Ham for a very long time. So we spoke the same language, although everything else was all Greek to us. That language was understood. So we would love to, but we don't know yet. For now, we're waiting to deal with the QSL card, and then we'll discuss other details later.
John, K6YP. Adrian, can you discuss what triggered the police to yank your chain?
Yes, as I said, there was a complaint over the phone from a person in Salonique, and that basically said there's a group of amateur radio operators that are operating from Mount Athos illegally. So because of that, the police needed to open the investigation, and according to the Greek law, even though they looked at the paperwork and that looked fine, obviously, they had to investigate it and actually even apologized that they had to drag us out of our, operating site and do this, follow up to what the law required. During the investigations, actually, Aris found out exactly who the person is, but knowing or not knowing makes no difference anyway, so.
John NZ6Q. Wow, that's loud. Is there anything after you got there that you might have looking back at it, we might have done differently to been able to not be asked to leave? I mean, it sounds like the police cleared you, but then the monks were embarrassed.
Well, the monks were embarrassed by the fact that when we opened up the discussion of operating from Mount Athos, I think I took about half an hour to explain how hard it is to get a permit from Mount Athos. And so the conclusion was that the monks were the problem. In the end, what turns out is that other hams were the ones that causing the issue, and that was a disappointment for them, obviously. A bit of hard for them to understand why with other ham operators, considering Mount Athos is so rare, will have so much, give us so much trouble. But as I said, the only explanation will be envy, These guys did it and we couldn't, so maybe they don't have what they say they're having. In any case, this, in a way, this dealing with the prosecutor's office, that actually in a way helped us, because now they looked at our paperwork and there's no denial that we had the correct paperwork. If the authorities, the prosecutor's office says, these guys have everything that's needed to be legal, that means we did not do anything that's out of the ordinary. You can't prevent people from, calling the police, obviously, but according to the law, they can't do that again anymore. So if either us or others go back and are lucky to activate Mount Athos again, they can't use the same trick to stop the next operation if there was going to be one. Any other questions?
Okay.
Not a question, but just thank you for doing it.
Well, thank you, and hope you guys had a lot of fun listening to me as I had fun being on Mount Athos and enjoying the pilots. So, see you next time.